Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I had done a video for my Halloween series using this Big Numbers stamp set. And when I did that video, I was thinking how fun this would be doing Christmas colors with different numbers, obviously. I will have the other video linked at the end of this one in case you missed it. But basically all I'm doing is taking two pieces of Tim Holtz Distress watercolor cardstock, the one that's already cut down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I had treated it with my anti-static powder tool first. And then I'm stamping the numbers 2 and 5 from the Simon Says stamp, Big Number stamp set. And I'm overlapping them. And after I'm stamping them with Simon Says clear embossing ink, I'm coating them with detail white embossing powder. Doesn't really look like anything in the video because it's white on white. And in real life, it was kind of the same thing. That's why I'm kind of coating everything with the embossing powder because I can't even see what I'm doing, especially with this watercolor paper. It's so white that when you stamp clear ink on it, I can't see it at all unless you really tilt it into the light. So I would stamp and then coat it with the powder just to make sure I could see what I was doing. And I did that to both pieces. So I stamped it and I made sure to stamp it so that the 2s and the 5s were somewhat together. So it looks like 25, 25, 25. Because you don't want just like random numbers kind of floating like so it doesn't make sense. And I decided to do 2 pieces. You could do red and green on just one piece, but you would have to be really, really careful because when you mix red ink and green ink, you get a muddy mess. So I decided instead of messing around with that and trying to make it work, that I would do one in a red and one in green. Makes my life easier. Plus I get 2 cards out of the mix, you know, and I can experiment with colors. So I'm using Distress inks for this. I've already stamped everything and melted all that embossing powder with my heat tool. And then for the red one, I was only going to use 2 inks and then in the end decided to use 3. So I am using Festive Berries, Candied Apple, and Barn Door Distress inks. And I'm just mushing them onto a piece of acetate. And that gives me a little more control. I'll also have another video at the end of this one linked to a more recent one I did, doing the same technique just to create a background. But I've done this multiple ways. I've done it like this on acetate, and I've also done it where you just smush the inks onto a craft mat or a larger piece of acetate, and you flip your cardstock on top of it and press it down. You get this cool background. Really, whatever works for you. I just like this one specifically when I want more control, and for these, that's kind of more important because I only want to apply the splotches of color over the numbers. I don't want to coat the entire piece of cardstock. So I did the red one first. And then for the green, I ended up using Evergreen Bough, Lucky Clover, and Cracked Pistachio. And sometimes I would dry the colors in between with my heat tool just because I didn't want them to completely meld into each other. Because when you're working on wet, the ink is just going to meld with the other ink and then it's just all going to look like one color. And I wanted that splotchy look to show different colors of ink. I thought it would just give it more interest. So once I was happy with all the ink, and you can see I went back on the green and added even a little bit more just to deepen it a bit more because that Cracked Pistachio is such a paler green than the other two. And I wanted the numbers to really pop. So once I was done with all of that, I want to stamp the words Merry Christmas. And I had used multiple sets for all of this because I had a very specific idea in mind and I wanted the words to look a certain way. So for the Christmas, and then there's 3 or 4 little dots here. This is from the Essential Greetings set. I didn't like the Merry in that set. I didn't think it went with what I wanted to create. So the Merry is from the Happy Christmas stamp set. So I stamped that onto, this piece is some Schoolhouse red cardstock. Where it's close up here, you can kind of get a better idea of the red. In my photos and in other parts of the video here, that red, it comes across a lot darker than it really is. Like, it's just a really gorgeous, deep red. But in my pictures and in when it's like actually on the card, it looks just really dark. It's kind of weird. Anyway, so I used that for the red, and then I did the exact same thing on some green cardstock, also from Simon Says Stamp. This is green leaf cardstock. So I had treated both cardstocks with my anti-static powder tool, stamped both of those with the same clear ink, and then embossed them with the exact same detail white embossing powder. And once everything was done, I'm going to trim these down with my paper trimmer so that they're in strips. And then decided that I'm going to trim down the one end even more. And so that I've just got a straight edge to work with. So do that with both pieces. And once I've got those trimmed down, I can use my scissors to cut a little V notch in the end here. So I just start in the center, cut one little notch, and then you meet each corner up with that little center cut. Super, super simple. So I would do that twice to both pieces, and then I made sure to use my fingers to really rub off the rest of that anti-static powder that I'd used before, because especially on darker cardstocks, it shows up pretty well, but you just rub your fingers on it, or a Swiffer cloth, whatever works. So once I've got those cut, I'm going to adhere my little watercolor backgrounds here onto the card base itself. And I use Tombow Mono Multi for this. Just a really thin amount. It gives me a few seconds to kind of wiggle these around so that they are lined up perfectly on their card bases, which is just some Nina Solar White 110 pound cardstock that is scored at the top. So these are top folding A2 size cards. And then I grabbed my sentiments and put foam tape on the back of them and adhered them. So the green over the red background, the red over the green background, because I wanted them still red and green. So to give them a more Christmassy look. And then I have this Doodlebug Doodle Twine Christmas assortment that I have had for eons. I don't even know if they sell it in a pack like this anymore. But there is a red, white, and green twine, which I thought was just perfect. So I wrapped that around the top of my red card and tied that in a bow, and I'm just using my reverse tweezers to hold that in place so I can fiddle with the bow itself, especially when you're working with twine because it's already twisted. All the threads are twisted. It can be a little finicky. So I use my reverse tweezers to hold that in place so I can fiddle with it before pulling it tight. Because once you pull it tight, if you start pulling on it anymore after you've already tightened the bow, it'll start twisting even more. And I've also shown that in a lot of my videos. So I did that with that one, and then for the green one, I decided to use the red twine. So same thing, wrapped around the top, used my reverse tweezers, tied it in a bow, and then trimmed off the excess. I would have left that. I wanted to leave like the tails of the ribbon longer, but because these were on a pack that was wrapped around like that, it had like all these weird little kinks in it. So I was like, ugh, I just cut the ends a little bit shorter than I wanted. And then for my embellishments, I'm using some Doodlebug sprinkles, glitter sprinkles. I had the red ladybug ones for the green card, and then I used some limeade ones for the red card. So got that done, and that finished off the outside of the cards. And then for the inside of the card, I'm using the Peace on Earth stamp set, and this sentiment I just thought was so perfect for these cards. So I'm just rubbing my hands on it really, really well just to make sure, because I don't think I've ever used this stamp before. But I want to stamp these sentiments with that same distress ink, and this worked perfectly with the greens. I started with the lightest color and applied the ink, and then the middle color, and then the darkest color, and stamped it, and I got this perfect ombre sentiment on the inside. It just worked. The red, not as much. You can kind of see it in real life, but these inks stamped on a sentiment like this, you can't really see any sort of ombre effect at all. But I tried it anyway just to see what would happen. So I inked out really the lightest red, the medium red, the darkest red, but it just didn't translate as well as the greens did. But it was still such a great sentiment. So made sure to ink it up, realized right in time that I had missed just a little bit of the top, so I quickly added the ink, and then stamped that on the inside of the card, and that finished these cards off. They were so quick and easy to do. No actual real like Christmas, stamps, just those numbers, which are super fun. And then of course the sentiments and the colors to make it Christmas. So like I said, I will have links to the other video I did with this same stamp set in a Halloween theme. I will have a link below the video to my blog post with links to all the supplies used. So check that out below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye.